Aunga, aunga, aunga sana. Aunga, aunga, aunga sana.
Since I started making television programs, there are 3 times as many human beings on Earth. We've tripled in size. And everybody, like you and me and everybody else, we all want houses to live in, and we want schools for our children, we want roads to travel on, and where's that going to come from? Well, a bit can come from recycling, as it were, what we've already got or ruined, but most of it's going to come from the natural world. And if that is the case, there's 3 times as many people now living as then there's less space for the natural world. And that's incontrovertible, of course it is. It isn't necessarily disastrous, but what we need to do is to recognise what the problem is. And then we can be a bit more sensible about how we invade the natural world and do it more economically and in a more planned way and a sensible way, so that we can look after the people who are born onto this planet. But unless we do that, we will simply despoil the entire world. I wish I knew the answer. It's a dreadful problem. And the population growth rate in parts of Africa is very high, and everybody needs places to live. And in the past, of course, it's been high, but it's been in the past the death rate or child rate of death has been high, and we quite rightly think that's inhuman. So we've done our best to stop that sort of thing. But the consequence has been that the population's so it's a major problem. It isn't in particular one particular species. It's ecosystems that I despair for. I mean, this is the whole community of animals and plants, all complicated, hundreds of different species, thousands of different species, one to lot. And the most crucial one that I most despair of at the moment, because it's a disaster that is absolutely staring us in the face, and that's the marine environment. There is no place in the ocean, even in the remotest part of the Pacific Ocean, as far away as you can get from any land, you can imagine, you find plastic floating on the surface of the sea. Can you imagine? I've just seen a film of an albatross that comes back. An albatross circles the world collecting food for its young, and may be away for weeks. And I've seen it come back with a full crop, and the young is there waiting for the food, and the albatross opens its mouth, and what comes out of its beak? A torrent of plastic fragments. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? I mean, the tragedy of that sort of thing, and it's our fault. I mean, when I was at school, the schoolmaster said, we're living in a new age, we're living in the age of plastic. Yes. Wonderful it was, and it was cheap, and it could do all sorts of things. Nobody noticed. They also said it's very long-lasting. You know, nobody thought that was a disaster. With the seeds of disaster, it is long-lasting, and it can't get rid of it, and we are polluting the world with it. Dreadful. I don't deliberately go to dangerous places. I think the most dangerous place I've been probably is in West Africa, in one of those countries where there's a lot of military unrest, and if you find somebody who doesn't speak your language and doesn't really like the look of your face and has been drinking too much and he's got a loaded rifle, that's quite dangerous. I've not been in danger from an elephant or a lion or anything. Yes, I think so. And I think, well, I mean, if you want to see what, if you exclude germs, I mean, if you want to look at the big creature that's caused more death and destruction in the world, it's hard put to it to find someone who's done more than the Homo sapiens. Mm-hmm. The natural world is infinitely big. No human being in half a dozen lifetimes can see what there is to see in the world. I mean, that's the beauty of it. There is always something new. Not, I may say, that it means that only if it's new is one interesting. I mean, I don't know how many times I've filmed lions catching wildebeest or something. I mean, it is an astonishing sight, however often you see it. And how often you would look at a hummingbird suspended in midair, absolutely stationary, drinking from a flower. It's an amazing sight, and I can never tire of it myself. I don't know about my favourite. One of the things I found absolutely extraordinary, which I didn't know before we started doing the research, and one of the researchers working in the literature paper discovered it. Did you know that there's a frog that you can actually freeze solid all the way through, so it's as hard as a board, and yet it will come to life? An extraordinary discovery, and we still don't know a lot about it. And of course, it's quite interesting for those people who think that you could freeze human beings and bring them back to life in another century. Cryogenics, as they call it. But well, we show the frog and we show it coming back to life. The deep sea rovers, the things which can take cameras down to pressures and depths that human beings can't possibly survive in if they're a free swimmer. So we have now pictures of the underworld, of the undersea world. But of course, sea covers 2/3 of this planet. That's why the series was called Blue Planet. Most of the world is covered with water. And that is the least explored part of our planet. I mean, I would like to see the marsupial wolf, the so-called thylacine. That would have been very, I'd certainly like to have seen that. I'd quite like to have seen a dodo. Yeah. That's almost sentient, really. I mean, that's just me being curious, inquisitive. What we have lost primarily is animal communities, is ecosystems. We haven't totally lost any one particular ecosystem of any magnitude. But we're on the verge of it. I mean, we're on the verge of exterminating the rainforests over great areas. If we do, it will be catastrophic. You know, science is proceeding at an extraordinary pace. When I started making programs, well, certainly when I was at university, nobody believed that continents drifted around the surface of the Earth. Well, now that's not only accepted, but the absolute basis for understanding volcanoes, tsunamis, the distribution of the Australian fauna compared to the European fauna. You can't make sense of the world now without knowing that sort of thing. And that's happened in my lifetime. Discovery of DNA, we didn't know that about DNA when I was an undergraduate. And now those discoveries are going on all the time. There is a realization that the genetics which I was taught when I was a student is now only part of the story of heredity. There's a science called epigenetics, which explains how, in fact, characteristics can become involved with the gene in a way which was heresy to suggest when I was a student. So things are changing fast, which of course is why it's exciting. I mean, if you felt that the story of life is all there in a book and you just got to read chapter 25 and you'd learned it, how boring that would be. You might read chapter 25 by the time you're 70, in which case you know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Well, it's not like that. I mean, it's continuous discovery and excitement and revelation and thrill. Only too many. I mean, the trouble is, I find it very difficult to refuse invitations. I mean, people say, "Would you like to go to?" And I say, "Yes." Well, I mean, you know, the world is full of fabulous places. Lovely. I mean, I'm off next week. No, what am I talking about? I'm off tomorrow morning for the Kalahari. I don't get on an aeroplane with the excitement of the champagne bubbles in my blood and the thought of sitting in a seat for another 14 hours. No. I mean, the best you can do is to shut your eyes and pretend it's not happening, and wait for it to be over. No, but it's when you get there. I mean, it's terrible. The boring journeys, yes. But when you get out, when you finally get out of the airport, which of course is the other next thing, and you suddenly sniff the tropical air. It's quite different. Aunga sana. Aunga.